Hello, everyone. I just wanted to revisit something from the longer email and video that I did a few weeks ago. It's about the words inclusion and integration and assimilation. So sometimes when we use the word inclusion, we mean integration, and sometimes when we use the word integration, we mean inclusion. But what we need to be really careful about is that when we use either of them, we don't mean assimilation. Assimilation means that a person from a minority group changes in order to fit in and blend with the majority group. I think some of you might be familiar with this clip. So that's what I always think of when I hear the word assimilation, is the Borg. What does that mean in practical terms, aside from becoming members of the Borg? For terms of disability, say, it means just putting up with access issues, sensory overload, because nobody's going to change anything. In terms of being a member of the LGBT community, this means not acting gay, not standing out in any way from those heteronormative gender stereotypes. In terms of minority ethnic groups, this means acting more like a white person or a settled person. For example, not wearing traditional dress like a hijab or a turban, which might have cultural or religious significance, in order to not stand out. In terms of gender, this means women acting more like men, but not men acting more like women, interestingly enough. Consider that it's acceptable for women to wear trousers, but not for men to wear skirts. And why do you think that is? Just something to think about. Um, so yeah, we have loads of problems with this kind of framework, the idea of assimilation. Honestly, there's too many to go into here. I could do multiple hours of videos on everything that's wrong with the concept of assimilation. But a couple of quick bits. Assimilation assumes that there is only one way, one fixed way to be mainstream, when actually there is already a lot of diversity in our society. Um, Denying who we really are, pretending to be something else in order to fit in, that leads to such significant challenges, particularly in terms of mental health. And ultimately, if everyone assimilated, we wouldn't get the benefits of diversity. We need diversity. We need different ways of thinking to help us deal with some of the challenges that we face in society. Diversity is a good thing, and if everyone gets more the same, that's actually a bad thing. So we'll move on to integration and inclusion. Integration can mean slightly different things depending on the context. In the disability sector, it has tended to mean assimilation, and it has some very negative connotations there. In terms of migrant integration, it has an official definition, which means it's the right to practice cultural beliefs without like a negative effect on the mainstream culture, the original culture. But it does specify that there must be movement on both sides. When people talk about integrated services, they mean different services working together seamlessly for the benefit of clients. It's a word that has kind of different meanings, therefore, depending on the context. In terms of minority groups and migrant groups, integration is a step on the journey towards inclusion. Inclusion is an active word, it is a doing word. Remember how I would have covered previously, it's not enough to just say we are open to working with everyone. We need to make sure that the services are actually accessible to all of the people who may need them. Again, this means simple things like having a lift for wheelchair users and wide enough doors. It means ensuring that diverse clients are represented on publicity materials so people understand that the service is for them. It means translating documents into a range of languages to ensure that everyone can understand them. It isn't just leaving the door open, it's opening it, it's standing outside the door, it's welcoming people in, it's adapting the service to the new needs as we become aware of them. When we talk about social inclusion, we are talking about how to make sure that our services can be accessed by the people who need them. And this includes how to make sure that people actually know about the services and what we actually do. Sometimes it's not enough to say that the door is open. Sometimes we need to go to the door of the person and say, this is who we are. Would you like to come and avail of our services? We'll walk with you. And sometimes that is both literally and figuratively. Ultimately, there are benefits to the approach of integration because it acknowledges that society and the institutions have to change and adapt, as well as the need for new communities or other marginalised groups to adapt in some ways to mainstream society. And an example of that would be learning the language. Like people do have to learn to speak English in order to fully participate in society here. But for that to happen, society needs to make English classes available and bear in mind the different needs that people from different countries may have, and like what kind of an English class they can go to, what kind of an English class they need, depending on if they have childcare needs, if it needs to fit around work, if they may have low levels of literacy in their own language. And don't forget that our society is already dynamic and diverse already. There are benefits to inclusion. Again, as long as it is active inclusion, not passive, not saying we include everybody, but not actually doing anything to make sure that that's true. Ultimately, though, if you mix up the terms inclusion and integration, or if you aren't 100% sure of the difference between them, or what, whether you're using the right one, that's not the end of the world. There are benefits to both of those words and both of those approaches. But the key thing really is to make sure that you are not speaking about integration or inclusion when you actually mean assimilation. There are no benefits to assimilation. Assimilation creates a dull and boring and unproductive society. If you think that you might actually be considering assimilation instead of inclusion or integration, maybe you need to explore that. It's like when we think about inclusion of minority groups, of refugees and asylum seekers, of people with disabilities, what does that look like to you? How does it actually work in best practice? If you can close your eyes and imagine, what does a fully, truly inclusive society look like? When we talk about integration, do you see that two-way process that I've described, with the services and the supports needing to change to meet the needs of the clients, as well as the clients adapting to the processes and systems that we use in mainstream society? Have a think about it, or if you're watching this as part of a team meeting, have a discussion about it. The link to the feedback survey is in the email, and I would love to know what people think. If there's any other matters, there's a couple of videos coming now soon on some of the questions that have been raised. But I just wanted to get through these ones first to kind of break up that longer one from a few weeks ago. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, because I appreciate how busy everybody here is, but it is really appreciated that you take the time to watch these to improve understanding and work towards delivering a better service for everybody in Donegal. Thank you.